that anti-Semitism has been rising, has been experienced by college students for years now. In the last Anti-Defamation League survey of college students, over 30% said they had personally experienced anti-Semitism. This was 2 years ago, so well before October 7th. And of that 30% who had experienced anti-Semitism, 70% said they had experienced it multiple times. What's changed now is that we have a perfect storm, a perfect political storm, perfect historical storm that has given way to this, rather obscene burst of anti-Semitism that we're seeing right now on campuses. You have college kids who just a couple of years ago were stuck at home for 2 or 3 years during COVID, spent all that time on TikTok, on Instagram, which is where they learned basically how to think about the world. And at the same time, this exact same cohort was radicalized during that period, during the summer of 2020, and for the following year or so by the Black Lives Matter movement, by the death of George Floyd. And they were given voice and in a sense trained for this moment. And now they found the moment, they found the cause, even though on the surface, it makes no sense. Most of these people have no skin in this game, no connection to Palestine, no connection to Gaza, no connection to Hamas, and no connection to Jews. Like this idea of silence, of tolerance, the fact that these folks are allowed to parade through universities, to violently encounter Jewish students and menace them, to have 40 Jewish kids, trapped in a library in New York City, in Manhattan, of all places. As awful as that is, to me, what's even worse is the fact that it's been tolerated, it's been, in a sense, sanctioned, and nobody's speaking out. But why? I mean, the question is, how has this happened? What can we do about it? I think that, the last few years have seen, or last decade really, has seen the rise of, what we call woke culture, of identity politics. Intersectionality, the quest for most oppressed status, and within this quest, within this race for who's hurting most, Jews have always been silenced. Jews have always been silenced on college campuses. Why? Well, for one thing, Jews are perceived as white. I'm Jewish and I'm not white, so obviously that's not true. But it doesn't matter. I mean, what I've just said is pinpoints the problem exactly. This entire movement is a movement of anti-intellectualism. There's no respect for facts. There's no respect for logic. There's no respect for intellect. What is respected is feelings, screaming, and who can talk louder. And right now, this organized group is screaming the loudest. But again, it goes back to the question, why are they screaming? Do they know what they're screaming about? I know why I'm screaming. I'm screaming because 1,400 Jews were murdered and 200 are missing. That's why I'm screaming. But if you were to ask these people why they're screaming, because we need to free Palestine. But from whom? Who is holding Palestine hostage? I don't know. That's it's what you call the duh factor. The duh factor is dominating this entire conversation. And again, I think Jewish students and Jewish organizations have been sort of, in a sense, trained, in a way, bamboozled or tricked into thinking that their grievances are not as valid as other students on college campuses. They're not as valid as Black students. They're not as valid as trans students. They're not as valid as Asian students. This has to change. There has to be zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. You would never tolerate a racist attack on a campus in America today. You would never tolerate an anti-gay attack on a campus today. And I say this as a gay man. Yeah. So for some reason, anti-Semitism has been tolerated, and this has to change. There must be a zero tolerance. I think the way to make it sexy is to simply be very straightforward. What I'm doing in my own little activist work that I'm doing here in New York with my writing is simply saying over and over again, you are wrong. This is not correct. There is no genocide in Gaza. There is no ethnic cleansing. What I'm doing here is really goes against all the values of sort of liberal and progressive culture right now. Liberal progressive culture says you cannot tell people they're wrong. You must respect their feelings. You must respect their lived experiences. No, there's no more respecting feelings. There's no more respecting lived experiences when that respect is going to result in the assaults on Jewish students, possibly people losing their lives, and the continuation of over 200 hostages in Gaza that need to come home to their families. at the end of the day, in America, as a person of color, I would honestly say the only color that matters most in America is green. We're seeing extremely wealthy people saying, the cash is being turned off until you take this situation seriously. And when these universities no longer get their tens and hundreds and multiple hundreds of millions of dollars from pliant, flexible, easy to accommodate Jewish donors, they're going to start listening. But the question is, where would that money come from instead? We know that Qatar and other Gulf states have been heavily involved in financing universities, and they clearly have been perhaps anticipating this moment, the moment when Jewish donors would say, enough already, but now the Arabs are here. So I think that really, though, it's going to take a strong, concerted action by parents, by donors, and by students to say, we will not take this anymore, and something must change.